Welcome all of you. So, today is the first lecture of the course Environmental Planning and Management. I am Professor Sonal Thengne, Department of Hydro and Renewable Energy, IIT Roorkee. So, the content for today's lecture would be, we will start with the levels of organization, the overall levels, like where does the smallest unit on this planet Earth start from and how far we can go till the extent of the universe. Then ecosystem, some definitions of environment and ecology, the concept of domino effect, causal loop diagram, and the need for environmental planning and management. The abbreviation is EPM. So, the levels of organization, what is the smallest unit that we can think of? Atom, protons, atom is made of protons, electrons, neutrons, but let us start with the atoms. So, atoms combine together to form molecules, then we have protoplasm, cells combine to form tissues combine to form organs, and all different organs make organ system, and that is what make us like organism. It can be animals, human, birds, okay. Those organisms, when they live in a group, we call them communities or population. So, populations and communities, they together thrive in the ecosystem. Then we have biomes, biosphere, earth, our planet, the solar system, and galaxies and universe. So, out of this entire level of organization, ecological levels of organization follows these, they start with the organism, the actual living organisms living on this earth, which lives in the form of population, community, and then they comprise together with their surrounding environment to form ecosystem, and then biomes and biosphere. So, if we look at what exactly individual or organism is, it is a basic unit of study in ecology. So, ecology and environment, we will see the difference later in next slide, but the basic unit of any environment or study in ecology is individual or organism. And when this group of individuals of same species living in the same area, they come together, they form a population, and population can be a basic unit of a biotic community, because similar to one individual or one organism, there are different organisms, and when all of them come together in the form of different populations, they form a biotic community. So, now we have individual, population, community. All these things live together in some environment, some habitat, and the place where each of these biotic components or living organisms interact amongst themselves and with their surrounding environment is called as ecosystem. So, if we have to distinguish between what is environment and what is ecology, ecology is understanding how all these things work, whereas environment is everything that surrounds us, like where we are living as organism, and whatever is around us including ourselves, that forms environment, and how all these things are interrelated and work and function to survive or thrive in the environment, that is what is called as ecology. So, environment refers to the surroundings, the interaction between physical, chemical and biological components of the surroundings, whereas ecology, it is a study, it is a subject, it is a study of relationship between organisms and their environment. If you look at environmental issues, ecological issues, they are slightly different. Environmental issues would include pollution, deforestation, global warming, like climate change, all these are environmental issues, whereas ecological issues will include the diversity, population size, variation, migration, distribution of organisms, competition amongst different organisms in the habitat, and environment. Again, it is the subject which deals with studying environment, it deals with internal and external factors affecting the environment, whereas ecology tends to understand all the life processes, distribution, adaptation and biodiversity. This figure which shows basically the definition of environment. So, environment is a combination of biosphere, atmosphere, hydrosphere and lithosphere. So, biosphere is the area where all the living organisms live along with the biotic components of environment. Atmosphere, obviously the surface or the layer just above the surface of the earth, which is comprising of mostly air, oxygen, ozone and other gases. Hydrosphere, it deals with the water cycle, where we have clouds, vapor going up in the then condensing down as rains, and lithosphere is the land part, the soil part of the earth on which the most of the terrestrial organisms live. So, in a limited context, I can call environment as a ecosystem. So, ecosystem we saw that it is one of the unit in the levels of organization, especially ecological levels of organization, and in some limited context we can call this ecosystem as a environment. So, with this background of like what is environment and what is the ecology and what is the difference, I think it was important to note this little bit introduction of these concepts, as we will be dealing with how to plan and manage our environment with respect to lots of other like anthropogenic activities, particularly industrial activities on this planet. Now, components of ecosystem. So, there are basically two types of components like abiotic and biotic. Abiotic, obviously, as the name indicates, it includes all the non-living components or the physico-chemical components which deals with soil, air, water, nutrients, and biotic components, it includes all the living organisms, all those organisms which are the part of the food chain, including decomposers, producers, consumers and decomposers. So, abiotic factors we can categorize it into two types, physical and chemical. So, physical are basically the air, water, minerals, soil, sunlight, all those are physically available in the nature, whereas chemical we have them in the form of some materials is particular or elements or compounds. They can be either organic or inorganic or free elements. For example, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, potassium, all these salts and the pure elements, they exist in the inorganic form, and in organic form we can have the combination of these elements as compounds or the proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, the lignocellulosic biomass. So, all these things are the organic substances. So, those are the abiotic factors which deals with the physical and chemical aspects of the environment, and all these factors does affect living organisms. And when we come to biotic factors, they can be classified as autotrophic and the heterotrophic. Autotrophic are those which can produce their own food, right, mostly plants or producers, and heterotrophic are like they rely on someone on some plants or some other organisms for their food. So, they can be consumers or decomposers. In consumers, mostly animals which can be primary, secondary, tertiary. I think most of you might have studied this when you study the food web and food chain, and decomposers are mostly microbes. When the plants or animals they die, they start decomposing, and it is these microbes which survive on them and contribute to decompose them completely over a period of time. So, when we talk about this ecosystem, which is also similar to environment in a limited context with that like biotic, abiotic components of ecosystem. This ecosystem, there are different types of ecosystem. Each ecosystem will have some functions and some services. So far as human beings are concerned, we are like benefiting from the services of the ecosystem. Okay. So, to perform those services, ecosystem needs to perform certain functions, and those functions are the processes of an ecosystem. Okay. These processes deal with mainly the transfer of material, energy or information. Those are the ecosystem functions, and they imply the capacity of ecological processes and structure to deliver an ecosystem service. So, for delivering any service, the ecosystem has to do a certain function, and this function deals with the movement or transfer of material, energy or information. Similarly, ecosystem services, there are different types of services like say provisioning, regulating, cultural and supporting. We will look at them in detail in the next slide. So, services are the benefits that human beings derive from the functions of ecosystem. It are the beneficial products or services to humans from ecosystem functions, and these are also both the functions and services. These are also the conditions and processes through which various natural ecosystems, including their biotic components, they sustain and fulfill or contribute to human life. As you see on this arrow which connects ecosystem functions to ecosystem services, it is written human welfare. So, when we talk about services, it is mainly with reference to human beings and the benefits derived by human beings from different ecosystem. So, these are different types of ecosystem services. 4: cultural, provisional, regulating and supporting. And there are different examples of like how provisioning, like when you say provisioning, it has to provide food, water, materials, medicines to us. So, those are the provisional ecosystem services. Regulating means controlling or governing and maintaining the proper balance within the ecosystem, and that has to deal with again the physicochemical components of the environment, which is air quality regulation, climate, water, erosion, water purification. So, those things are regulated by the ecosystem, those are regulating services. Supporting, the one which helps us derive food or do the agricultural activities. For that we need soil, water, nutrients. So, maintaining all those things are the supporting services of the ecosystem. And then there is an interesting service which is cultural. So, how does ecosystem provide like cultural service, like let us say spiritual and religious values, because in India there are many communities and many traditions where we worship nature and different elements of nature. So, there are spiritual and religious values, aesthetic values. When we go travel to some beach or like say hilly mountains and see beautiful valleys. So, those are aesthetic beauty features of the ecosystem which helps us derive some pleasure. Then recreation and ecotourism, the same, and mental and physical health. Ecosystem in the sense in the cultural, they can provide us various services which will affect or which will contribute to maintaining our health positively, not just physical health, but mental health also. So, this is a simple diagram showing linkages between ecosystem services and human well-being. So, if we have this provisioning, regulating, cultural and supporting, all 4 services of ecosystem, they can contribute to human well-being through basic materials for good life like food, water, raw materials and all, security, health and good social relations. So, all these things are derived by human beings as benefits from the services of ecosystem. Let us consider one case study before we study the concept of domino effect, and this will tell us how different components in environment interlink to each other and how one decision can lead to unintended consequences. This is a case study of Operation Cat Drop. It is a story about Borneo island in Malaysia, one of the villages where the ecological cascade had gone totally wrong. There was some problem, there was some solution proposed by World Health Organization, and even though it solved that problem, it created many other problems. So, that is how an ecological cascade goes wrong. Some cascade means something like one thing leading to another which is linked sequentially. So, this story is being referred to in many environmental and planning management books as case studies, but the authenticity of this story is still not sure, but it is a very good example to explain how a wrong decision or how not a fully prepared or fully analyzed decision can lead to additional or some new more problems. So, the problem in this island in Malaysia in 1950s was malaria because of excess mosquitoes there, and the solution which was proposed by the World Health Organization was the spraying of DDT, because in those times DDT, we all know DDT is used to kill mosquitoes and it can help to control malaria. So, what happened when this DDT was sprayed on that island's village, in addition to mosquitoes, it also killed other small insects such as wasps, and it also poisoned some flies, because flies and wasps they also inhaled DDT. You can see from this picture, like this is just a representative picture which shows how DDT sprays are done in like open areas. So, the unintended consequences there was the DDT was consumed by flies, and flies cannot digest DDT. So, it got accumulated in those in their bodies, and geckos are some lizards which rely on these flies for their food. So, when lizards ate those flies, their metabolism made them very slow. So, geckos they ingested some toxins, and now these lizards were the food for cats. Because these lizards they started moving slowly, it was easier for cats to catch them and eat them. So, when these cats started eating geckos, they started ingesting toxins coming from DDT, and because of that cats started becoming ill and they started dying. So, the population of cat on that village in island, it started declining, and because of the population of cat decline, the population of rats started to multiply. It boomed and it started to threaten the food supplies, because when there are more rats in a small area surrounded by water, it will go and attack the food supplies, and because of rats there are some other diseases like more dangerous diseases than malaria like plague and typhus, which started spreading. So, that was one series of unintended consequences. There was one more, because this DDT eradicated wasp, which eventually turns out into like caterpillars, which turns out into the bigger insects, and when these wasps were dead, the caterpillars started to increase in numbers. Wasps are the ones which eat caterpillars for their food, but because of DDT, wasps died and caterpillars population started to increase, and these caterpillars, they rely on the roofs made of thatch. So, the roofs of the houses of people living on that island, they were made from thatch. So, caterpillars started consuming them, and because of those excess caterpillars, the roofs of houses started to collapse. So, this was another series of unintended consequences just because of spraying of DDT. So, in that case, the desperate solution, when people from that island contacted World Health Organization again, they came up with a very unique solution. Like, if the population of cats is dropping on that island, why do not we just drop some cats on that island through parachutes, and that is why the operation was called as Operation Cat Drop. The decision was taken to parachute 23 cats into that remote Borneo island village, so that those cats can control the population of rat. So, not sure whether it was a sensible decision to parachute the cats, but think about it. What are the key lessons that we get from this case study? It shows how environmental systems or this food chain, food webs are interconnected. Though the intention behind spraying DDT was good, positive, to solve the problem of malaria, to kill the mosquitoes, but then it killed some other species which changed the whole ecological balance, and it led to several unintended consequences. So, it demonstrates unintended consequences can be caused by poorly analyzed decision. Also, this case study highlights the need for systems thinking. Like, when you take a decision, what is the boundary of the system that we are considering? Okay. So, we have to think at the level of the entire system within that boundary. That is what is conveyed by this case study. So, it shows how different things in the environment or ecosystem are connected to each other. So, if that is what is called domino effect. Domino is basically like those piles or the piles of blocks which children used to play like Jenga. So, if you put them one after each other and like pluck one domino, it will cause the rest of the dominoes to fall in a sequential manner. So, in ecosystem everything is interrelated, and the changes that seem narrow in scope at present, they can set off a domino, and that effect can reach far wider than ever anticipated. For example, like in so I am in Roorkee in the North India, and all of you have heard about stubble burning problem in Punjab and Haryana. So, the rice straw or stubble is burnt in the fields of Punjab and Haryana, but when we read morning paper news, it shows the pollution, air pollution or the particulate pollution increasing in Delhi. You see, like Delhi is like almost 300 kilometers far from Punjab and Haryana, but the impact of one activity at one place is far wider, and farmers who are burning that stubble may not have ever anticipated that this will cause problem to people in Delhi. So, domino effect or chain reaction, it is the cumulative effect produced when one event sets off a chain of similar other events. So, when one event sets off different events in series or in parallel, the cumulative effect of that is called as domino effect or the chain reaction. And in environmental planning and management, this has to do with decisions, because whenever some company or corporate decides like okay, they want to change some strategies related to their production, marketing or sales of products, or maybe the procurement of raw materials, they will have to take certain decisions. And while taking a decision today, a thorough analysis is required what would be the impacts or the possible consequences of that decision. So, a decision you make today at one place could have unintended consequences in some other place at some other time. Okay. So, that is why it is important to address or to consider all the possible affecting factors while taking any decision. It is not just related to environment, but planning and management are very generic concepts which can be applied in diverse fields, and decision is something which is taken in almost all the fields and in every aspect of our life. We have to make decisions, but when we make decisions, I think it is important we think like or we consider all the criterias based on which the decision is taken, so that it does not have any unintended or any severe consequences, and we do not miss out on any possible conflicts or consequences it can have like it can lead to in future. So, this was the concept for domino effect. We understood this with the help of the Borneo island story, and the solution, the second time the solution was quite funny, right? When malaria was replaced by plague and cat population started dying, rat population started going up, what was the second solution? Parachute the cats on the island, and that is a quite funny solution, but I think it seemed to work. Healthy cats were dropped on the islands and they controlled the population of rats, and things started getting normal. But I think the sensible solution would have been maybe the controlled spraying of DDT or finding some alternative to DDT which could control malaria or mosquitoes, and not just one solution, but maybe multiple solutions could have been implemented to solve this situation better. So, all these things would be considered when we talk about planning and management, and we will go through these concepts in the coming lectures. Okay. So, what did we cover so far? We started with the definition of environment and ecology and the difference between them. We looked at the components of ecosystem, the biotic and abiotic, and how they are connected to each other, and then we also studied the concept of domino effect through the example of that video on Borneo cat islands and Borneo island story, where there was a problem of malaria, and even though the problem of malaria was solved, it led to two new problems. One, the people losing their houses roofs, and the new epidemic of plague because of increased rat population. So, what did it show? Like obviously, it is a domino effect, it is a chain reaction, one thing is connected to other in the environment, but in this course the similar thing happens with the decisions. So, when we make a decision, we have to be careful that we include all the factors and all the possible impacts of that decision over a period of time where it can have those impacts. So, with that I think I will stop here, and we will meet in the next class.